Morning, right? Morning, everyone. Sorry, long week. Just got to make sure. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the week. I'm not sure about you, but my brain is pretty scattered. I've consumed a lot. I spent this morning downloading some videos because I'm getting on a plane tonight. I want to make sure there's other stuff that I wasn't able to go to that I can watch. Powering up my devices right here, so things are going good. So anyway, thank you for coming. I appreciate your time today. So this talk is about a ProPlus deployment project. It's basically at the project management level, and so it's not going to be very deep. If we'll probably have time at the end, I certainly would love deep types of questions. This is basically not really how to structure your project, but some considerations and some strategies, and what we've seen some successful customers do. We talked to some of so is anyone at the ProPlus customer showcase on Tuesday? Henkel, Allstate, and TE Connectivity. So we interviewed some of those folks, and they gave some great, said, hey, here's what we've done. Here's what we've done to be successful. And there's another customer, 3M, who has done some case study evidence for us. And they're a huge company. And they also had some, we talked to them about, hey, what did you do successful? That was successful. And so we've got some real evidence about what other people have done. We also have reference to some other sessions that if you want to get more deeper information, if you want to download those videos from the plane, feel free. Where's my clicker? Here it is. All right. So basically, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to follow like a normal deployment project. We're going to start with what would I do in the pre-deployment phase, or what do I do to get ready. Then we're going to talk about the deployment phase, and then at last, how to manage it, and really we're going to talk about updates. Training and adoption. That can be something that can be done before, during, and after. That's always an ongoing challenge, I would say, for a lot of organizations. So we're going to talk about it after deployment, but please keep in mind it's not something that you should consider as you do your deployment. Adoption and readiness and training is something that you should consider now. And I'm going to say that at the end. If there's one thing you're going to pay attention to, because if you're not falling asleep yet, you will. So please start your adoption and training plan now, as soon as possible. So we're going to start with pre-deployment, and what kind of stuff would I do when I'm getting ready to deploy. And one of the biggest challenges we've seen in the past is when someone says, hey, I'm ready to deploy Office, I've now made the decision, I've just bought it, it can take up to a year to get deployed for your first seat. Because the challenge is figuring out, okay, well, what do I do first? Right? I don't know about all my documents. Maybe I'll go find everything that's in my environment, and then I'll start to make sense of them all. And that has led to a huge time suck for a lot of IT environments. And just trying to inventory everything is a problem. So one of the things we started a few years ago was start evangelizing a more modern compatibility process, so you can start to figure out, okay, where do I start first? What do I need to do now so I can get ready to deploy and make a successful deployment project? And it starts with discovery, figuring out what you need, and then rationalizing, getting rid of the noise, and that's where discovery really helps. And discovery and rationalization kind of tie together. And then the validation, or the testing phase. For Office, I don't really like to call it testing, and we'll talk about why. I like to call it validation. And then, to manage, keep going. One of the key things with the discovery process is to not over-discover. That's where we see a lot of customers spend a lot of time, is trying to figure out, hey, let me get a better handle on what's in my environment by finding everything. Bad idea. So, a better idea is basically, think of your initial process as a discovery, not an inventory. Don't try and inventory, oh, that's a super cool Venn diagram. I didn't make up that term, but it sounds like it, right? So, when you inventory what you have, you start with that huge, huge circle of here's everything in my environment. And that can be immense. It can be, and what I usually tell customers is you're trying to estimate how many documents and solutions you have. Start with about 500 documents per person, and depending on your industry and maybe the tenure of your employees, that number is only going to go up. So for a 10,000 person environment, that's 5 million documents. And what can you possibly do with 5 million data points? You get rid of almost 5 million data points. That's something that's more manageable. So the discovery is about finding out what you need, which is a much, much, much smaller circle, compared to starting with inventory, which is what you have. And the challenge with Office is that inventory the what you have and what you need delta is incredibly severe. Ah, yes. So basically, if you start with 5 million documents to try and figure out, hey, what do I need, that's a horrible way to start, because then you spend most of your time getting rid of the noise, getting rid of 99.9% of the things you find. So discovery is a better process to try and figure out, well, start with what you care about, or really, what's important to drive the business. And the big thing with the goal of discovery, right, when you're trying to discover what's important to the business, you're really trying to figure out, well, what do I need to test or validate before I go to the next version of Office? That should be your goal of discovery, not seeing, hey, everything that's out there, but what does it take to run the business? Right? I gave an example. I did a similar discussion 2 or 3 years ago at the Tech Ed conference. And just before I searched my laptop, my OneDrive, SkyDrive at the time, my Documents folder, and I found 1,200 documents, Word or Office documents, that I had, that I created at the time. I was with Microsoft, I think, 6 years. So one person at the company, 6 years, already had 1,200 documents. Not all 1,200 are important to me. In fact, I have found 21 copies of my resume. Probably only one's important, maybe 2. But I don't need to spend time trying to find out all those unimportant documents. It's a much better process to start with, hey, what do I need first? What's critical to me? The good news, from a process perspective, that's one of the reasons why we created the telemetry dashboard, which is included in Office 365 ProPlus and Office 2013 Professional Plus. And it helps change the way that you approach deployment projects by, it first figures out, well, what's your usage? What documents are you currently using? Which is a great proxy, or a great way to determine, well, what's really important to my business, because people are actually using it. So instead of finding out everything that lives in your environment, you can just discover what people are actually using, and that can be your starting point of, hey, what do I need to test? What do I have to do to build my test plan? Now, one thing I will consider, an idea I'll float, is sometimes discovery can be an optional process because of other technologies that we've released in the past few years, namely click-to-run, which is our deployment technology. As an example, 3M decided not to do any of this. And they decided, you know what, I don't need to figure things out, and I'll tell you why. So discovery can be optional. A few years ago, I was evangelizing this process, and we spent a lot of time on what's the right way to do discovery. And now it's at a point where, because of advancements in technology, you may want to consider this an optional task, and we'll get to more of that later. Oh, yeah. So to take a look at the dashboard, this is what the telemetry dashboard looks like and how it can help your pre-deployment efforts. Is when you open up a brand new telemetry dashboard, it gives you, hey, here's all the documents in my environment, all the solutions in my environment. One of the key things that I think is a big value is if I go to the documents worksheet, if I go to the, okay, there we are. And what it shows me is all the documents in my environment that people are actually using. And it's sorted by ones that are used the most. This is a great shortcut to help me figure out what's really critical to the business. More importantly, I've got fields, so if I'm only concerned with testing Excel documents before I deploy, I can filter everything out, and I only want to look at Excel documents. There's also this built-in column that says, hey, does this document or solution, is it shipped with Office? And the reason why that's important to, in my opinion, get rid of is because if your goal is to figure out, well, what document should I test before I migrate to the next version of Office, you can get rid of stuff that is included with Office, because we have a great financial incentive to make sure that stuff that we create actually works in Office. So what I like to do is just go to this built-in column, get rid of the number 1, and now I've even shortened my list of things. Here are the things that are used the most, Excel documents that my end users have created. And now I can provide this to the business and say, hey, we think you need to test all your stuff before we migrate to the next version. Here's a starting point. This isn't the end of the conversation, however. Telemetry isn't the answer for this is unequivocally what it takes to run the business. This is a point in time. Basically what telemetry does, it gets your most recently used list from all your computers or your agents and bubbles it up centrally. So now you can figure out, hey, what documents are really being used? So it's a starting point. It's a conversation starter. Not the, okay, telemetry says we have these documents, we're going to test the top 10 or everything that's been used by more than 25 people. Those are all arbitrary numbers. It's basically a great way to get your business areas engaged to help determine, hey, what do I need to validate before I go? Same thing with add-ins. If I go to the Solutions tab, it also shows me, hey, here's what add-ins are in my environment. Again, let's say I only care about Outlook add-ins, for instance. I can now filter out everything but Outlook, and I don't care about the ones that come shipped, but I don't want to spend any testing cycles on the stuff Microsoft creates. And now my list got a lot shorter. So I've got one add-in in this example that is used by a ton of people. I've got a lot of add-ins that are used by just a couple. Do I need to spend any testing cycles before I migrate? And that's a purposely rhetorical question because the answer is either yes or no, or it depends on your tolerance or your environment. So the telemetry dashboard is great because it helps discover what people are using. One of the best two uses for telemetry is in the pre-deployment phase, when you're getting ready to go to Office 365 ProPlus or Office 2013, Office 2016, is to figure out, hey, what are people using now so I can help determine what do I need to validate and test before I go to the next version.
Where does it get this data?
From Office clients. So the question is, where does it get this data? And actually, that's a good point. Yesterday, I did a session, and I link to it in about 2 minutes, that talks more about, hey, what is telemetry? How do you install it? How do you verify it works? And a big overview about it. So for more information, I'll show you the session you can download if you want something to look at on the plane or to put you to sleep. But basically, Telemetry Agent is built into Office 2013 clients. There's a separate installer you can deploy to down-level Office and clients. It's about a meg or meg and a half in size. So you can collect the MRU information. And you're not collecting data, you're collecting metadata. File names, paths, the computer name it's on, titles. But you're not sucking in any of the data itself. Sorry, what's MRU? Great. The question is, what's MRU? And that is a great way to highlight acronym problems. Most recently used list. Basically, whenever you use an Office document, it'll show you, here's all the documents I've used. That's stored into the registry. Telemetry Agent sucks all that up centrally and bubbles it up as an easier-to-consume dashboard. Thank you for that. That's a clarification that really highlights the assumptions that I make sometimes. Most recently used. Sorry. Again, more assumptions. So some general recommendations is if you're going to use telemetry, it's a starting point. It's a conversation starter with your business. Before telemetry came out, what I would say to customers is don't inventory everything and try and figure out what documents are there. Start talking to your businesses first and say, hey, listen, let's figure out what documents are important to you that it takes to run your business. Because the IT group generally doesn't know what Office documents or solutions that the business areas use day to day that have to run their business. So the discovery process starts with talking to your end users and talking to your business areas. Telemetry can shortcut that. Also, discovery is supposed to drive any of your testing efforts. So you're looking for solutions that people use. You're not looking at it to find, hey, let's find all the problems. For example, if you think, I got to find all my macros, to me, that data point is worthless because that doesn't tell you who's using them or if they're being used at all. A better way, in my opinion, is to find what solutions, documents are used the most. If they contain macros, that's fine. Test the ones or validate the ones that are being used. Because testing a macro that is, or document that contains a macro that's used by only one person and it was used a year ago is a waste of time. And that's the goal of telemetry, is to help discover what things are not a waste of time to validate. And the first step to getting telemetry installed is to put together an infrastructure. It's a very lightweight infrastructure. And there is a session that was yesterday, if you want to download it, all about the Office Telemetry Dashboard. And there's also a hands-on lab. I don't know if the labs are still available, but you can actually install the telemetry dashboard if you want to get more information. So after discovery, in the compatibility process is compat testing. That's all your app compat work. And then the question is, well, what does compatibility really mean? And the short version of this kind of wordy slide is, does it work for me? Can I get my job done? So for instance, if I have an Office document or a solution or an Excel worksheet that has many, many, many charts, I test it out in Office 26 or Excel 2016. And I find out, you know what, I can't print this document for whatever reason. I've made up that scenario. Is that a blocking problem? And the answer, in my opinion, is, well, it depends. Do I need to print normally during my normal workflow? If I'm just trying to figure out what does and doesn't work, but printing is not something that I need to get my job done because it's some electronic form that I need to submit somewhere, then that's not a blocking problem. That's not a compatibility problem. That may be something that the developer of the solution or Microsoft or someone needs to validate or fix eventually, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a compatibility problem. So the goal of compat testing is, does it work for me? I often get a lot of questions internally, externally. Hey, can you tell me, Microsoft, what third-party solutions work with Office? And the polite answer I usually say is, there's no single entity that says, does product A or solution A work with solution B in environment C? The only way to do that is by using product A, solution B in environment C and validating, can I get my job done? Because if Microsoft or the makers of solution B or solution A say, yes, it works, and then you later find a problem, what does that statement do for you? But you said it works. I'm like, okay, well, we still have to fix it. I mean, software vendors make bug fixes all the time. All software has bugs. But do those bugs prevent you from getting work done? That's the concern. That's the thing you need to be worrying about. And that's the challenge with compatibility testing, is the only people who can determine if it's compatible are the people who do the work. Right? So user acceptance testing, UAT, is the only unequivocal way to determine, does something work for me? There is no tool in the world that will tell you, does this work in that solution? Right? Hey, Office 2016 is coming out. Can you tell me, give me a tool that will inventory all my docs and tell me which ones will work and won't work? If I had that solution, I wouldn't be here. I'd be somewhere on a beach counting my money. Because that sounds awesome, and I get that question a lot, and I'm like, yes, I want that. But no, it doesn't exist. All right, so UAT, again, only way to determine is something compatible, can be a challenge for a couple reasons. You need to test it in an environment that represents your production environment. So if I tell you Office works, or Excel works fine, but you find a specific problem because of the way you're using it in your environment, that doesn't really help. Me saying it works is, not helpful. Heck, Excel 2013 worked when it first came out, but we've made lots of fixes since then because of specific bugs that we found. So basically, when you're doing UAT testing, you got to figure out, well, where am I going to test? How can I have my end users test in an environment that represents a production environment? Maybe that is production. Maybe that's a separate UAT environment. If you create a virtual desktop infrastructure, that's a great way to provide a UAT environment for your end users that can mimic production, that has a lot of scale and the ability to reach remote clients. So let's say you can just give them a link via an email or go to a portal. Click here, it'll open up a desktop that's hosted somewhere else, and you can do all your testing there. That's what I used to advocate a lot. Challenge there is it requires a VDI infrastructure. It requires hardware and time and money to manage. If you don't already have that, just saying, yes, just use a VDI infrastructure. And then that's a very unhelpful statement. The other thing with UAT is you got to make it production-like, and you got to make it easy. Because if you don't remove any barriers, if you don't make it easy, people will always find a reason why it's not important. So the asterisk there is for a question. What do you think is the hardest part of UAT? Anyone? Participation, yes. In my opinion, I said it differently, but the same thing. Hardest part of UAT is getting people to UAT, just getting people to show up. Right? I don't have time to test, not my job. My job is to make money for the company. Testing this thing that I know already works, no, forget it. I don't have time to do your testing, is sometimes a common statement. So just getting people to show up to the table is really difficult. And that doesn't sound like a technology problem. It's a people problem. But we have developed some tools to help make it a little bit easier. And that is our deployment technology that we built into Office 365 ProPlus. Click to Run is our buzzword. That is based off of App v5, our virtualization technology, that allows you to run Office 365 ProPlus in side-by-side mode with previous versions of Office. So the great thing is, we do have a document that says you can run Office 2010, Office 2010, together. It's supported but not recommended. Here's 8 screens of information that tell you why you shouldn't do it. So yes, you can do it today. Please don't. Click to run makes that a lot safer. It reduces virtually all the challenges there. But the great thing about implementing Office in side-by-side mode is it basically eliminates the impact of introducing change in a production environment. Because when you're introducing something new, like and you're the IT group telling the end users, hey, this is going to be the new shiny thing, you're going to love it. What sometimes the message is, whoa, you're removing my very comfortable thing that I can do my job with. And so that's the risk of implementing something new, is you often take away the thing that's comfortable and works. So side-by-side eliminates that impact. Side-by-side makes testing in production a not laughable statement. Typically, if you were to say, oh, let's test in production, like, whoa, no, that's horrible. That introduces a lot of risk. But click to run, side-by-side, eliminates that risk. In fact, so basically, yeah, you can test in production. You don't have to worry about finding a UAT environment. You can just use your production environment. So your deployment efforts, let's say you use your pilot efforts as your testing bed. So you identify, make this up, 100, 200 people in your environment, 1% of your entire landscape to say, hey, listen, you're going to get Office 365 ProPlus first. We're going to install it, not remove the previous version of Office. That's your UAT environment. Your pilot, your deployment effort actually becomes your testing and validation. Because what you're doing is you're pre-answering the question, what if something doesn't work? I'm going to give you the new stuff. Oh, what if something doesn't work? Well, you've got the existing stuff. For instance, if you have Excel 2007, we give you Office 365 ProPlus. By default, when you double-click an Excel file, it's going to open up Excel 2013. What if it doesn't work? Then you open up Excel 2007, and you navigate to the document, and you can use that while your remediation team fixes whatever the problem was, if you find out it doesn't work. We do have, in fact, the customer panel on Tuesday, 3 customers said they found they all said 98 or 99% success rate of using their existing stuff with the newer Office. 2 of the customers were coming from Office 2003, TE Connectivity and Henkel. And they both said, I can't remember which one, said 98 or 99%. So if they do nothing, no remediation efforts at all, and this is what we've been telling people for a few years, expect a 98, 99% success rate. Side-by-side provides the safety net. Oh, wait, I've got a pretty thing. I know, flashy. You're welcome. It provides that safety net. It's really side-by-side is an emotional comfort blanket. It's nothing major technology-wise, but it helps pre-answer the question, what if my stuff doesn't work? 3M said to us, we did an interview with them because they deployed 50 or 60,000 seats of Office 365 ProPlus in about 3 or 4 months and said, wow, that's awesome and unusual. How'd you do it? And we were talking to it about what they were doing, and I said, well, what did you do about testing? And I said, well, we didn't. I'm like, tell me more. And so basically, they had a lot of people who were saying, I don't have time to test it. I can't do it. So what they found was just saying, oh, we're going to use side-by-side. We explained it what it was. We're going to give you the new Office. We're not going to get rid of the old one, and then just validate your stuff works. Just do your normal job day to day, and that's how you do your validation, by getting your job done. And 3M said, the quote I loved hearing was, talking about side-by-side was a conversation stopper. Because it got rid of the people who said, or excuse me, it stopped the conversation. Ooh, didn't get rid of any people. It stopped the conversation that said, I don't have time to test. And I thought that was great. That's what we've been evangelizing, and it was great to find a really, really big, large customer, a large environment that was able to use that successfully. And so they spent only a month in planning, and they started their deployment. I think they said they started planning in September, started their deployment in October. By December, they had about 50,000 seats done. Super is what I thought. I thought that was really great. Oh, look, I spelled piloting wrong. So instead of validation or testing, you can use click-to-run as part of, you can turn your validation phase, which may have been done in pre-deployment, now you can move that to your deployment phase and do all your validation as you're doing your pilot deployment. Maybe you can use click-to-run in side-by-side only in that pilot mode. So some general validation or testing recommendations is only test what's critical. Don't try and find everything and test everything. That is a waste of testing cycles. It's a waste of people's time. Figure out what's really critical to the business. And a shortcut way to do that is saying, hey, is this Excel solution, I'm making that up, in your disaster recovery plan? So that if a building all of a sudden becomes unavailable, you need to work remotely, is that solution that you're saying is critical to the business, is that in your DR plan? That's one way to shortcut a way to determine, hey, what's critical. Another way is just to, hey, use side-by-side in your pilot deployment and just start doing what you normally do. Don't change your behavior at all. Don't think about testing, just do your job. That is compatibility testing. You can use the telemetry dashboard, and that's another way the telemetry dashboard is good, is as you're introducing new builds, Office ProPlus builds in your environment, telemetry will give you even more information about, are there any documents that are failing to load, any add-ins that have performance problems, load performance problems. Is Excel crashing? Am I using any macros that have outdated object model items? So you can use the telemetry dashboard during your pilot to give you a little more reassurance about, hey, how is the new Office working in my environment? But yes, click to run. C2R allows you for no-fear testing. Testing in production is now a real valid statement, and it's a really time saver. So, and this is what I said 3M did, they decided not to do discovery. And they used their pilot deployment as basically just-in-time discovery. Meaning, because discovery is figuring out what people are using, what's important. So by just giving them the new Office and doing your normal job, you're actually doing what's important, which is your job. So piloting using side-by-side allows you to do basically just-in-time discovery, and then you can think, hey, is the discovery process entirely optional? Because now you have the safety net. And basically moves your discovery and validation phase from pre-deployment into the deployment phase. Definitely some considerations, and we've got some anecdotal evidence, and 3M was a great case study that said, hey, this worked for us. And I was really happy. Yes?
Is side-by-side usually done with two different versions of Office, or are they doing to be 2013 and 2013?
Excellent question, which was, hey, in my opinion, I didn't explain side-by-side very well. So side-by-side is installing Office 365 ProPlus alongside an older version of Office. It is not supported. We've got a KB article that says Office 2013 Professional Plus and Office 365 ProPlus not on the same computer, not a supported configuration. All right, so talking about side-by-side and deployment, then there's consideration, okay, when do I use it? What are some recommendations? We have no public documentation that says, here's our best practices or recommended practices for using side-by-side. In what we've talked about, it facilitates your pilot deployment efforts. It helps you move discovery and the validation into the deployment phase. Oh yeah, it's a conversation ender. I wrote that after talking to 3M. It helps end the conversation, well, I don't have time to test. It's wonderful. It is not recommended for long-term use. It's a transition state. It's great for pilot deployments, not an end state. For a couple reasons. One is people reasons. In general, it's not a good idea to have two versions of something on your computer that do the exact same thing. That can lead to confusion. If people have, I'll make this up, the Excel 2007 shortcut pinned on their taskbar, they may continue to use Excel 2007 even when the default is Excel 2013. And what may happen is, if they keep using Excel 2007, they don't know, they may call the help desk and say, hey, why does Excel look like this today when it looked like that yesterday? And it could drive up support costs. Another more technical reason is, by default, when you open up an Office attachment in Outlook, if you use Outlook 2007, regardless of if you have Office 2007 on your computer, regardless of what the default version is for Office documents, an Office attachment opened in Outlook 2007 will open up Excel or Word 2007. If you open up Outlook 2013 on that same computer and launch that same attachment, it'll open up Word or Excel 2013. Even if your defaults is, let's say, 2013, the version that gets launched is dependent on the version of Outlook you launch it from. So again, that can be a support issue. Hey, when I do this, it opens up Word 2010. When I do that, it opens up Word 2013. What's going on? So it feels like an inconsistent problem. It can be hard for the help desk to troubleshoot because it can look sporadic. It's by design, poor design, good design, it's up for debate, but that's the design of the products. Oh, and if you decide to unside-by-side, because we're saying side-by-side is a transition state, not an end state, so eventually you got to remove the old version. To do that, you need to uninstall the old and then do a repair of the new. Or if you decide, and you'll never decide this, that Office 365 Pro Plus is not for me and you want to unside-by-side and keep the old version, you still need to uninstall the new and then repair the old. So just uninstalling doesn't do it. It's uninstall plus repair. Yes, question?
When we do this process, when we do the repair, can we switch out from 32 bits to 64 bits? Because we will not be able to do side-by-side 32 to 64.
So the question is, I'll paraphrase, can I unside-by-side and swap out 32 and 64-bit? Maybe. So I'll tell you some facts, and then maybe you can draw your own conclusions. It is not possible, not supported, to have any 32-bit Office product alongside any 64-bit Office product. Visio 2010 32-bit, Excel 2013 64-bit, regardless of version or deployment type. You use @v, click to run, MSI, you can't have 32-bit and 64-bit Office products on the same machine. So if in side-by-side mode you have two 32-bit processes, or two 32-bit installs of Office, then you uninstall one. You can then install the 64-bit version, but it sounds like you have to uninstall both of them. The challenge with 64-bit is working with existing stuff, mainly add-ins, that may not have been coded or may have been designed for 64-bit Office. So technically possible if you remove all the 64-bit stuff, not often easy to do, though.
With the side-by-side, the telemetry, we pick up the stuff that we opened in the old Office 2007.
If you deploy so the question was, will telemetry pick up documents you open up in the old version of Office? If you have the telemetry agent deployed, which is a meg in size, deployed to your down-level Office clients, then yes. I'm going to hold the questions till the end because I'm running out of time, or I may be running out of time. If you need to use side-by-side, make sure you have the latest service pack for Office 2010, because there are 2 hot fixes released, I think 2 years ago, that fix a file association issue. If you're using Office 2007 and you want to do side-by-side, those same 2 hot fixes were released after the latest service pack. So you need to actively install those 2 hot fixes listed there if you have Service Pack 3 and you're not installing non-security hot fixes on a machine. So keep that in mind. And for more information about deployment and side-by-side, we've got a bunch of different sessions this week. In fact, there's one in this room after this session by a very smart gentleman, not me, John Maunder, who's talking about different ways you can do deployments. And when you do deployments, if you're going to use your software deployment tool, Config Manager, Altiris, BigFix, Landesk, whatever you want, you need to get the Office deployment tool. And in my opinion, deployment is the easy part of your project. Getting the software from point A to the multiple point Bs, that can be done like any other software deployment project. It's the planning, it's the training and readiness, it's the management that will probably take more of your thought cycles and effort than the actual deployment. So the Office deployment tool is just a setup.exe. It's used to download the ProPlus media from the cloud, and so now you have it, and then you can deploy it using any tool you want. It's very easy to use. There's only a couple switches. One is to download. One is configure, which does the install, uninstall, reconfiguration. And it's a very simple XML file that configures the deployment experience. And if you want more information about the deployment tool and deployment itself, we've got a bunch of different sessions. There's one, Demystifying Deployments, yesterday that talks about common myths and how to get around them. One of our top MVPs, Yoni Kirsch, delivered that. And then there's some other sessions about deploying with Config Manager and more about the Office deployment tool in general. They get pretty deep. In my opinion, there are 3 options for deploying ProPlus with the Office deployment tool. And when a lot of people have asked me internally, externally, hey, what's the right way to deploy Office using Config Manager, for instance? And I'll say, there's a ton of right ways, or it depends, or insert your cop-out answer here. But there is no one single way. So there are concepts that will help. And what I talk about is the install from here approach is what most people do, is they take the software media and all the source files, and they deploy it together. And that's like any other software deployment. I get all the software I need, I deploy it to my distribution points. If I'm using SCCM, caches locally, then installs. For ProPlus, I call that the install from here approach, because I'm now adding that Office deployment tool, that 1 meg setup.exe, with all my source files, and I'm now managing it like any other piece of software. And we've got, again, other sessions that go into that more deeply. But that's what people typically mean when they say, how do I deploy software, or excuse me, ProPlus using Config Manager? What they're getting at, typically, is how do I deploy ProPlus like I do every other software I do today? So this is most likely the answer. Then there's the install from there approach, which what you can do is you can now, because the Office deployment tool, that setup.exe bootstrapper, can be independent from your source files. That gives you some flexibility. I can send 1 meg of data to my clients and then kick off a task that installs from a remote location. It allows me to pre-stage the bits in a remote site or on a desktop before I do deployment. Gives me some more flexibility. Or I can send 1 meg, install from the cloud, install from a different source, but allows you to have additional flexibility. This is an option that fits in some organizations. And the other one is what I call the install from everywhere approach. So there's install from here, install from there, install from anywhere or everywhere, which is basically use the cloud as your install source. Instead of using your own distribution point infrastructure or your own software tool infrastructure, you can use our cloud, which is just our data centers. Great for internet-only connected clients, so they don't have to come back to your network in order to get the software. And basically, you're only sending 1 meg to the clients, and then it's pulling the data from our cloud. So there's different options, and again, we've got a bunch of different sessions this week that talk about it. The hardest part, not the hardest part, the more involved part, that's a nicer way to say it, of your deployment project is going to be readiness. Getting your end users ready and getting them willing to accept change. And that's where we talk about the human aspect of any type of change management effort, is how do I get people to adopt the new stuff? And some of it involves getting them ready, getting them excited, getting them to want the change. People are more accepting of change if they're demanding it rather than if they feel they're getting it pushed upon them. And oftentimes when we deploy software, it's the IT group saying, you are getting this, end user. Call the help desk if you have a problem. And it's nicer than that, hopefully. But basically, if people are saying, hey, where's my X? Where's the latest version of Office? Then they're demanding it. Then they want it. They are more likely to accept that change if they say, hey, why do I have Office 2007 at work, but my kid's got Office, Excel 2013 or Word 2013 at home? My kid can build better PowerPoint slides than I can at work. So getting them excited about it is actually a really important part of the project. Oh yeah, technology is easy, is dealing with humans. Everyone in here, including me, we're the problem, right? Because people are different. I keep telling my kids that all the time. People are different. People learn differently. Some people love to be, the ones that are waiting at the Apple Store for the next thing that's coming out. Some people say, meh, I'll get it when, it's forced upon me and, I have no other choice. And there's anywhere in between. So getting to that excitement, getting people willing to accept change can be difficult. And then the other question is, well, what type of training is needed for Office? One of the things we take very seriously is making sure Office looks like Office, so when we give it a slightly changed user interface, it's still familiar and comfortable to people. And we saw a big challenge going from Office 2003 to 2007 when we introduced the ribbon. And change since then has been a lot less severe. So a lot of companies have said, 3M, for instance, said, well, we didn't need to do any training. And they put they wrote a blog article on blogs.office.com that said that. We didn't feel the need, we need to do training. Because it looks like Office. People are used to it. That's kind of cool. One thing we found that's successful that Henkel did, and they mentioned this at the talk on Tuesday, and we've recommended this to other customers, is a champions approach, where you identify people in your business areas that are excited about getting new things, and you provide training to them. Maybe in-person training, maybe any type of training, online. But the people who are generally excited about getting new things, focus on them. They're going to be your champions because they will be your change advocates. They're going to be the ones who say, hey, look at this cool thing I got. They will be able to help others and drive that excitement. And inadvertently, they're going to be the ones that are going to be pushing your change upon their users, your end users, your audience. Because they're going to be the ones that often help others. And they're the best way, not the best way, they're a great way to help teach people. Because a lot of people like to learn from others instead of going to mandatory training. Every time I get an email, I don't know if this ever is familiar, saying, hey, you have to complete the following training by X. I'm like, fine, I'll sit through this video about compliance, legal, harassment, whatever, and let me just check the box that says I've completed this course. Right? My mind is turned off. I'm looking to finish the exercise, not learn something. But if people want to learn, and they want to know more because someone is saying, hey, look at this cool thing I got, or just talking about, or they're showing, here's what I can do, that's going to drive excitement. That's going to drive demand. And it's the demand you want to get, which is going to help the IT group institute or deploy change on folks. 2 great resources is our Office Deployment, Office 365 Customer Success Center. Success.office.com is a great place to go to look for adoption resources. And for training resources, we've got AKAMS/Office Training. And so I think I've got those queued up. So if I go to the Success Center, this is great. Basically, we have, since we started Office 365, we've been spending a lot of time on adoption, on getting people excited about it. We have a ton of resources. We have a whole site that can integrate with your Office 365 tenant, if you want, to help build your adoption plan. So if I go over to adoption, did I go over? Okay, yes. I can now take a look at, well, here's things for successful adoption. I click on Create Adoption Plan. It's going to help build me a plan. And it's going to use my Office 365 tenant. This is Office 365 focused, but a lot of stuff can be used for the Office client if you're deploying the MSI version or Office 365 ProPlus. The concept is the approach is what we're advocating here. So this is, hey, here's some good plans for adoption. There are some great resources. Create an adoption plan. They even have something about a champion's guide. And if you want, whoops, mouse is very sensitive today. And if you want to get all the resources, there is a resources, did I click it? I did. Please hold. There is a resources tab where if I click that, I will go, oh, great. Shows me all the different downloads I can use to download a bunch of different project templates, an adoption guide. And so I've downloaded some of them and expanded them locally. And one of the ones I like, let's see, an adoption templates, let's see, step 2, they have this in adoption guide. A champions guide. They talk about this champions approach. Our internal IT group, there we are. This just shows a bunch of different presentation. If you want to learn about what this champions approach is, it talks about it. It talks about why champions are so great. And again, it's winning the hearts and minds of your end users so that they want the change that you're sending to them. They have a whole presentation about, hey, here's how to build your adoption plan. It's super cool stuff. How to build your a project plan, a project timeline. So it's really helpful to help build your deployment and project plans. Another one I like is, let's see, scenarios template. Get it done. Oh, yeah. So we have a bunch of posters and flyers and some email templates that you can say, hey, here's things you can send, tips for Excel. A pre-formatted email message that you can now customize with your own brand that say, hey, you can send this ahead of time. Things are coming. Check out what you can do in the new Excel, the new Word, the new PowerPoint. These are designed to drive excitement. And the Success Center talks about, here's when to send some emails. Here's a countdown. Hey, you're going to get Office pretty soon. We have it in Word document format, in a pre-formatted email. And it talks about, hey, you're going to get Office soon. You can customize this. If you want to get rid of Office 365, just put Office. These are resources that you can use to help drive adoption. The other site I like is our training site, aka.ms Office Training. We have tons of videos about different Office applications. If you want to add numbers in Excel, we've got a video for you, because that's not really changed since the last version. Huh, that's weird. Okay. There's also other ones. Oh, why isn't my back button working? For different versions of Office. Office for Mac, Office for Android, Office for iPad, Office for iPhone, other versions of Office. So this is the home page for all of our just point-in-time training exercises. If you want little videos that you can go to these videos. You can download the video if you want to host it internally. There's lots of options for you. All right. So although I didn't spend a lot of time on adoption and training, that, in my opinion, is the most important part of your project, is starting with the adoption part. And the Adoption Center, the Success Center, is a great resource to help get you started. When we talk about management, we talk about maintaining Office. And I'm going to focus here on Office 365 ProPlus, because managing Office 2013 Professional Plus can be done like you've always done it. You don't get as much value out of it, but the new servicing model is a little bit different. In short, and I did a session 2 days ago that talks basically 75 minutes about this slide, and I won't do that today, but basically the new model is every month, every Patch Tuesday, second Tuesday of every month, we release a brand new build of Office. Right? So we don't release service packs. We don't release anymore. No service packs, no hot fixes, no major releases. Everything is a monthly build. It's kind of like a store model. But what the clients do, the Office clients, is they pull only the differences. So we release full builds, but the update actually starts from the Office client, and it's a pull model. So what the Office client does, it checks what build do I have, what build's the source, and it downloads the deltas only. Since we released a new feature called binary delta replication last summer, the average delta size, if you go month to month, has been around 80 or 90 meg for that delta. So the builds themselves are about a gig in size. You are not downloading a gig to every client every time you need to do an update. And the cool thing about the update model is the builds are cumulative, and the deltas get calculated as soon as that update starts, which means a couple things. If you don't want to get a new update, a new build every month, that's fine. Because if you skip months, or you installed Office on a computer, you close that computer, let's say it's on a laptop, and then you finally gave it to someone 6 months later, and it does an update. What it does, it checks what build do I have, what build's at the source, and it downloads just the deltas. So it means you're at most, at any given time, one update away from being current. Now, if you contrast that with the current model with MSIs and MSPs, you might have to install Office, then a service pack, then up to 50 or more MSP files. And they all happen serially. So it's a big challenge.
Is this part of schedule task?
Say again?
Is this part of schedule task?
By default, the question was, is this part of a scheduled task? By default, we have a task called Office Automatic Updates that, yes, facilitates this pull. And all it does is it checks whenever the task runs, it checks what build do I have, what build the source. If they're different, pull down deltas. If not, it does nothing. It's like a heartbeat. And you can run that task, or that exe that task runs, you can run it yourself. You can run it with Config Manager. And you can configure where that source is. Do I want to get my updates from the cloud? Do I want to get it internally? So you have control. And this kind of, another punchline I like to use with this new update model is that because everything going forward will be this monthly build process where you're just pulling down the deltas, Office 365 ProPlus is the last Office client you'll ever deploy. If you have Office 2010 and you're going to Office 2013 Professional Plus, then you go to Office 2016 Professional Plus. That's a traditional rip and replace. If you're an Office 365 ProPlus subscriber, when Office 2016 comes out, it's just going to be like any other monthly build. What build do I have? What builds are the source? Download the deltas only. There are a ton of controls, namely group policy based, that you can control when and where those updates happen. So you can have as much control as you want, or you can just let them happen. I'll keep going back to 3M. They said, when they were determining, hey, I asked them, how do you handle updates? And they said, well, we don't want to be in the business of managing Office updates, which, is, believe it or not, is our vision for all IT groups. We want IT groups to get out of the business of managing updates and just to let them happen. Now, typically when I say that in front of an IT audience, I'll get a couple snickers, maybe a giggle, or a eye roll, because not many IT groups are willing to do that. And we get that. And that's why I have a ton of IT controls to allow you as much or as little control as you want. And so what 3M said is we didn't find any evidence that we need to manage Office updates. So we get all of our updates from the cloud using the automatic update schedule task, and they just come down when they happen. I'm like, that's great. That's what we've been advocating. I'm not surprised. I'm very happy to hear that.
Is this a part of, I mean, is this on the background, is it force or user tool?
When the task runs, and it runs under the system context, if it detects a newer build, either in the cloud or at a local source, whatever you have defined, if it detects it's different, it streams it down in the background. Users don't see anything to pull the delta down.
The user to install new updates sometimes.
It can. If you have the scheduled task run, there can be some end-user interaction. The session I did on Wednesday, and I'll show you the link to it, we actually demoed that, or what potential end-user interactions there are. You have the ability to suppress all that. There's a ton of options available. For good or for bad, I could talk to you for a long time about updates. I get really passionate, with a nice way, wordy about talking about updates sometimes. And there's also some new stuff coming out with Office 2016 that will make, in the Office 2016 timeframe, that will make updates a lot easier to manage. But when you're talking about managing updates, there's basically two considerations using the updates, is where you're going to get it from and when are you going to do it. Are you going to get it from the cloud or an internal source? And then the when is, are you going to let the automatic update scheduled task just do its thing, which it pretty much runs all the time. It's a defined schedule, so it runs shortly after log on every day and then a couple times in the middle of the night, and it's a heartbeat. Or are you going to run it yourself? Are you going to take that EXE that the scheduled task runs and schedule it with Config Manager, for example? You have those choices. And the good news, the where you get your updates from and when are you going to deploy the updates are independent decisions. You could use SCCM to control, for instance, to control, I want to have my updates only come on at night. And you can run it every day to run that heartbeat. And you can say, oh, but I want to get my updates from the cloud because I'm running it during non-business hours. Or you can say, I want to let updates happen automatically, get it from an internal source, or get it from the cloud. But just because you're pulling updates from the cloud does not mean you're losing control over when they occur. You've got those options. And one of the challenges I see, especially with large IT organizations, the biggest challenge with large organizations is managing variance. Because there's never often a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. And you have to have some hybrid approach. And one thing I like to advocate a lot is via group policy, you can define, let's say, a pilot group or a vanguard group, if you want to call it. Maybe 1% of your environment, 100, 200 people, they're your IT group, your app owners, your developers. Configure them to get their updates automatically from the cloud. So it's a hands-off management approach. They just get it all the time. Right? Limit that to a very small audience. Everyone else, you can then control where they're getting their updates from. If you want to schedule it, you can do that. So then you can determine, hey, is getting my updates from the cloud automatically, is that a viable solution for my environment? This Yahoo at Microsoft said so, but who knows? We have a great customer reference that they do that, and they said this is how we manage it. But that's one anecdote. I was talking to a guy, another insurance company, who said that we were talking about updates, and it was a long conversation, but I said, why don't you just get your updates from the cloud? They were talking about agents traveling to different locations. And they said, well, we have an MPLS network where if I'm at a remote site, all network traffic to get to the internet flows through our data center and then back to the internet. So I just can't go from this remote site to the internet. Our network is configured. There's no split tunneling. So it goes through our data centers all the way to the cloud. So just getting updates from the cloud isn't efficient at all. In fact, it's worse. So your network configuration may impact what your decision is of where you get your updates from and when. One of the things that I sometimes advocate is I've got a config manager environment, and what I've done is I've created a package and a program that runs my update. And let's see, so the command I'm running is this right here. This is what the scheduled task runs on the client. This is an example of I'm sending something, or I'm sending a command via config manager, but I'm not sending the update. I'm executing an EXE that exists on all my Office clients, and what this does is it does a pull. if there's a new build. So it'll say, is there a new build here? Is there a new build there? And you can configure where there is. And if so, it's going to download all my apps, or it's going to download the Delta. And then I've got another option there that says, force my apps to shut down and then restart. And I demoed this on Wednesday if you want to download the video. So what happens, so this is something that I've put together, and let me just go to the properties of it. From a scheduling point of view, I've scheduled this to run every Saturday. So if there's no new build, I run this, nothing happens. So if it checks build here, build there, it's the same, end. If it's a new build, then it downloads the deltas, and it only happens on Saturday mornings. I could use in Config Manager software maintenance windows to ensure that if a client misses this, they don't run it Monday when they come back in, whatever business rules you want to apply. But this is one way I like to demo or just advertise, hey, here's a way that you can just schedule when you want to get your updates. And you can define, do I want to get my updates from the cloud or from an internal source? That's independent of the schedule. And since I'm doing it on the weekend, maybe I'll just get my updates from the cloud. I don't care about taking all the network bandwidth going over to the internet because I'm doing it during non-business hours. Just something to think about.
Question.
Yes?
Do you have to force the app to shut down when you update? Like right now, I can update someone behind the scenes and it'll just do it, and then when they close reopen the app, it's updated.
Correct. So the question is, do I have to force the apps to shut down in order to do an update? The answer is, let me see. Apps have to be shut down in order to get an update. So the update happens, and we explained this on the other session, in two phases. Download the Delta. If apps aren't running, then I apply the build. If they are running, then nothing happens. If I reboot the computer sometime in between, then it'll automatically apply. Or I can, via the command line, force it to shut down. So I've got a bunch of options.
Okay, so we can still do it like today where, you know, you can push it to them without them really knowing. It's still working.
Exactly.
Shut down the app.
Right, and so in fact, the demo I did Wednesday was, hey, look, I'm using Excel, writing a formula, didn't save my work, I forced an update, it closed, it opened in 42 seconds, and then my work was there. I didn't lose anything, even though I didn't save anything.
But you don't have to force the close reopen.
I did via the command line.
You don't have to.
You don't have to, correct. I didn't have to, I just chose to. So, for good or for bad, I could talk about updates for a long time, and there are a couple different sessions. One from a very handsome gentleman on Wednesday night that talked about updates in depth. There was a lot of great questions at the end. And then there's another one on Tuesday. Amesh Mansukani from our product team talked about, hey, here's how you can use SCCM for deployment and updates. And so we did a couple examples there. Was there a question? Yes.
So the update to Office 2016 is just going to be like just another update, only a bigger one maybe than 80 megabytes.
Since it's the current plan, or it's recorded, I will say yes, that is the current plan. When Office 2016 comes out, for Office 365 ProPlus, it'll be like any other monthly build. My guess, opinion warning, is that the delta will be bigger than normal, but I don't know that for sure. I am now assuming, but I've got no evidence to back that up. The public preview of Office 2016 today for Office 365 ProPlus subscribers does not update from current version, so we can't validate that yet. Our engineering team is working through that, and we'll probably have a lot more succinct data closer to release time.
Okay, but it's still going to say like 2016 because this cadence kind of would make sense to actually rip out that part of the name.
So, sort of. One of the goals of Office 365 ProPlus, and that's why I said it's the last Office client you'll ever deploy, is because this is just PowerPoint. If I go to the shortcut, this one says PowerPoint 2016 Preview. It'll probably change. But when I'm in PowerPoint, I bet you can't tell if this is PowerPoint version 2016 or PowerPoint 2013, and it's purposeful. If I go into, by the way, I love your question, which is why I'm spending so much time here. If I go into the File tab, Account, I will see I have Office 365 ProPlus, and it says I'm at version 16. But I don't expect end users to go here to say, what version do I have? You can. The help desk can talk to someone on the phone. I can go into programs and features, and it'll say the same version. but the goal is it's just PowerPoint, it's just Word, and that's why the current plan is it'll be released like any other monthly build. Users won't know. There's a couple cool things they'll see, like I don't know if we showed you on Monday, the Outlook attachment, most recently used list. That's kind of cool. A darker theme. Did we show the darker theme? So I think one of the things there is, where is that? On options. Nope. Info. Nope, it's back to account. Options? Info, let's see. Can't I find it? Yeah, it was on Office. It was on Outlook. Oh, geez, maybe it's switched in this build. I got a new build last week.
It's an option in 2013.
The theme?
Yeah, go to, right there, office theme, where we're down here.
Oh, colorful. Yeah, light gray, dark gray. Very exciting. That did move. I was used to it in a different place. I haven't changed my theme in a while, but sorry. Yes, there's lots of Office themes. One of the cool things of Office 2016, I knew that totally. So. Hold on, give me 2 minutes because I'm wrapping up, and then we'll have a ton of questions. I just want to make sure these questions get on the recording as well. So, in summary, we talked about different phases of your Office deployment project. Yes, it was a higher level session. I apologize if I went too deeply. We've got a ton of other questions or sessions that can go deeply. Again, the one thing to take away is start your readiness and adoption plan today. Start it as soon as possible. Because that's really going to help your deployment project. Again, the problem with your deployment project are the people in this room, and people like you, because we're all human. And not just you, it's just me as well. But it's just, technology is often not the biggest blocker. It's the people. It's people who say, well, what if something happens? What if there's a problem? Right? And sometimes, often, you can run into problems that are limited only by your imagination. So that's where we starting your readiness, and working on getting people to want the change is really important for a deployment project. So that's all I had. If you do have questions, we've got 10 more minutes on the microphones. Please go to the mics, and if you do, I will throw, if you want, a shirt at you. We only have 5 shirts, but thank you very much for coming, and I'd love to take questions now.
On the side-by-side with Outlook, can you run the 2 versions?
Great question. So with Outlook, you can have 2 versions on the same computer. You cannot run more than 1 version of Outlook at the same time. Okay. You will still get the message, there's another version already running.
What if you open up the profile in Office 2016, will the profile still work in the older version?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know when...
hi.
Do you know when 2016 is coming out?
Yes. We announced on Monday, fall of this year.
Okay.
That's the closest, the smallest time frame we have.
And will there be any kind of notifications, or it's just
I
part
don't know
of
what our notification plan is.
Okay.
Sometimes we get advance notice and we provide it, like on the our roadmap, Office 365 roadmap. We'll say, hey, here's things under development, things are coming. Sometimes for major announcements, we don't until announcement time. As an example, Office for iPad, I had no advance notice. My customers didn't have any advance notice. It was a day, by the way, Office for iPad's here. So I don't know if there will be advance notice for when Office 2016 comes out.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Yes. Oh, wait. Shirt? All right.
Question on side-by-side again.
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
Question about the side-by-side installations. So if I have ProPlus today, I have 2013 ProPlus, and then tomorrow it will be 2016. Can I use the same subscription model and have both side-by-side, or it has to be 2013 MSI, 2016 ProPlus?
To my knowledge, and we're talking about preview code, so anything I say is subject to being wrong immediately, you cannot have the same deployment type in the same version. So what that means is you cannot have Office 365 Pro Plus version 15 side by side with Office 365 Pro Plus version 16. What I have heard internally, subject to change, is you can have Office 2013, the MSI version, alongside Office 365 Pro Plus version 2016.
Okay.
And that's a scenario people have been asking because InfoPath, we announced 2 years ago, it's gone, deprecated. Office 2016 won't include InfoPath. So if you want it, you can have Office 2013, the MSI version, and remove everything but InfoPath, and then go to Office 2016 or Office 365 Pro Plus version 16.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. That's as of the plan today. Things may change. I don't know. Oh, right. It's not your T-shirt yet. Sorry. Thank you.
Hi.
So with Office...
You're next.
Oh, I'm...
No. You then.
Okay.
Sorry.
With Office 365 Pro Plus, is there an MSI version and a click-to-run version?
So, Office 365 Pro Plus installs with click-to-run technology and installs Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Office 2013 Professional Plus installs with Windows Installer MSI technology, installs Word, Excel, PowerPoint. The same underlying bits, so same Excel.exe, same object models, everything's the same except the deployment technology and the licensing and subscription mode.
So the people that bought an E3 license, if they want to use the MSI installer, they're not getting the activation with the MSI. So the local reps are hounding on us to get our clients to change the install so they get activation credit.
So, Office 365 E3 gives you rights to install Office 365 Pro Plus. Does not give you a license to install Office 2013 Professional Plus. So if you have that installed, I don't know, I can't speak if you're licensed for it or not. But E3 gives you the ability to install Office 365 Pro Plus, which, yes, does activation in the cloud.
So that's only the click-to-run version?
Correct.
So the E3 license, you only get click-to-run, you
Correct.
do not get an MSI
Yes.
version?
The end users, they see Excel, Word, PowerPoint. They don't even need to know about what subscription or licensing plan. They just see their stuff, they see Excel, and they see their email. That's it.
Okay.
You're not licensed to have the MSI installed if you don't have it for free.
Yeah, and an E3 license, Office 365, does not give you the license to install Office 2013 Professional Plus, which is the MSI install.
Unless you negotiate that.
Well, it depends on what your existing EA or licensing plan is, and that's even more confusing than anything I could talk about. So,
Just
yes.
a quick question on language packs. Any special advice for click-to-run?
So, languages can be so the concept of language packs is a little bit different. Languages get installed at install time, or they get installed when you redeploy. There's not a standalone language pack. They're about the same size. So the Office Pro Plus Media is 1 gig in size with one language. Every additional language is about 200 meg. So, for instance, Henkel said they had to manage 17 languages. And their Office 365 Pro Plus Media was, I think, about 3 to 4 gig. Because they wanted to make sure that their source media was replicated the same in all their internal content stores or distribution points. And that's a content management challenge. Because they felt that was easier than trying to determine, because not every one computer needs 17 languages. They thought that was easier than figuring out this site needs that language, that site needs those languages. They just said, we're going to give all languages to all sites, and the client will figure out what they need. So with languages, multiple languages, then you have a content management challenge. Your source can grow. And then doing updates from the cloud becomes a little more attractive, because each client doesn't need 17 languages. They need 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, so that only pull down the deltas of what they have. So the only challenge with multiple languages is it brings a content management challenge. Do you want to host all the content internally to facilitate updates, or get it remotely? Okay. So there's no... Is that a cop-out answer enough for you?
It's a challenge.
It is. There's no magic. It's content management. Do you want all your languages and all your sites? And again, where are you going to get your updates from? The advantage of our cloud is we have all 40 languages in all previous 20-some builds. And that type of storage is hard to replicate on-prem.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yes?
In regards to the telemetry dashboard, the 98% success that you've seen in most migrations, is there a common thread for the 1 to 2% failures?
Excellent question. In my opinion, there is not. And I got asked that a lot. Years ago, I built a compatibility workshop that we had people, partners, go with customers, and that was the common question. Is there a top 10 list of things that I can check for when I open up Excel documents? I can give to my help desk or my remediation staff. No. They're all one-offs. We have a list of things. Hey, this object model is a deprecated item. Doesn't mean it's going to fail. The chart rendering engine is different starting with Excel 2007. That doesn't mean charts will fail, but that's a potential. So 98, 99%. So everything we've seen anecdotally have not been common threads of that 1 or 2%. So unfortunately, another easy answer. No, we don't. I don't see common threads.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Anything else?
One quick. Will there be a 2016 MSI install?
Yes.
There is. Thank
Yes. Anything else? Okay. I want to get the ones on the microphone first.
just a real quick question about the extinction of InfoPath. What exactly is going to be replacing forms creation?
I don't know if we have a product that says everything in InfoPath will be done here.
Okay.
We had a blog post, I want to say 2 years ago, that said, hey, think about using SharePoint or something like that, SharePoint forms.
Well, that we use those, but using InfoPath. So they're InfoPath forms that are built into.
There's no easy way to say everything done in InfoPath can now be done using X. It depends on what are you using it for, what are your needs. So again, another cop-out answer of it really depends. Right. But it is clear that it won't be in the Office 2016 version. That's the only clarity I can provide. All right, if that's all, thank you very much for coming, everyone who stayed through the end. Appreciate it.